Boys, boys, boys. It's good to be king. It's good to be the best by 4.5 games after 5 weeks. It's awesome. If nothing else, I can look back on this season and say, I was in first for a full week. In fact, I've been in first for quite a while already. Well, let's not gloat too much. There's a lot of baseball season left. And there's a lot of things I need to cover this week. So let's dive right into it. Let's get this thing started. And let's begin with my win over Jason Ashby this week, 14-7. Close categories this week for me and Jason. I won triples by 1. He won home runs given up by a pitcher by 2. Correction. He won home runs by 2 and walks given up by a pitcher by 2 and home runs given up by a pitcher. I won by 2. You know, this week was really interesting for me. I lost Juan Soto to the DL. I lost Eloy Jimenez early in the week, maybe even late last week to the DL. But you take away my left fielders, and I'm still coming hard. You know, I never trailed in this matchup. The closest it got was 10-10 after Tuesday, but it was 17-1 after Monday. You know, it was an absolute just shellacking. I mean, Jason came back late, got, 3 categories in the last 3 days to turn it from 14-4 to 14-7. On my bench, I left a 6 for 27 line, which is 222 batting average, 7 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts, and an error. The big pickup for me this week was Merrill Kelly, along with Ben Gamel and Eric Thames. Those 2 guys filled in left field for me. Merrill Kelly back to the squad after the big trade, and he gave me a solid performance. I did drop him for Pablo Lopez, who also gave me a solid performance, but I digress. For Jason, he had a much better line than I did as far as bench stats are concerned. He went 3 for 22. It's a 136 batting average, 2 runs, a double, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, and 8 strikeouts. He did pick up Dansby Swanson off a waiver claim on what looks like Thursday. But dropped Gregory Polanco. I'm surprised he gave up on Polanco so soon. He also gave up on Domingo Santana. So, I mean, he's got a couple of outfielders that he feels aren't cutting it anymore, and he's moved on. He did pick up Nate Lowe, top prospect for Tampa, to play first for him. So, he's made a few major roster moves here this week, and we'll see where they go from here. Key players this week for myself. It's more Jose Abreu. He hit 3 homers, drove in 9 RBIs, a 357 batting average, a 419 on base percentage. Got 3 runs, 3 walks, 2 doubles, 4 strikeouts. He did commit 3 errors, however, And, not for nothing, it is, I did lose that stat, and I lost it by 2, so, Jose, not exactly the best with the glove. Javi Baez, again, another fantastic week. 318 batting average, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 6 runs, 3 doubles, 8 strikeouts. I'm just going to have to live with all of the strikeouts he gives me, considering the great batting average and home run numbers he's going to put up. And Matt Chapman, 333 batting average, 379 on base, 5 runs, 4 doubles, a triple, a homer, 3 RBIs. I hit 3 triples this week from Pham, Polanco, and Matt Chapman. Just Matt Chapman had much better week than the other 2. Pitching wise, Eduardo Rodriguez bounces back very nicely. 13 strikeouts over 10 2/3. Got a win, 4 walks, a 4.22 ERA. You don't like to see that, but the start he had against Chicago on Saturday, 6 innings, a win, 6 strikeouts, 1 earned run. Absolutely fantastic start, and I love to see Eduardo turning it around. Also, Pablo Lopez, the late start late last week. I think it was Sunday. I started him. Against Atlanta, 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, nothing earned, and 0.67 whip. It helps solidify exactly what I was doing this week. I ended up with an ERA of 3.92, more than enough to take down Jason, who pitched to a 6.14. And finally, Shane Green back at it again with 2 saves. I won the category 301. So Shane Green, another 2 saves for me. 3 appearances, 2 saves, 3 innings, and looks like 1 earned run across that time. For Jason, Andrew Benintendi, 345 batting average, 441 on base, 6 runs, a double, a homer, 5 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Wilson Contreras, who is far and away right now the best catcher in baseball, 500 batting average for the week. 5 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, and a 529 on base percentage. And finally, Whit Merrifield, 241 batting average, a 313 on base, 6 runs, 3 doubles, 2 triples, a homer, 3 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, and an error. What I found interesting was minutes apart. I was already ahead by the Tommy Pham steal because Tommy Pham hit that triple. Tommy Pham hit a triple very early in the week. I want to say it was like Monday afternoon. And somewhere along the way, Merrifield hit a triple. It was like the next day. And he hit a triple, and he tied it up. And I'm watching Jorge Polanco hit, and then he hits a triple. So, within 2 or 3 minutes, Jason had tied and then fallen back behind triples again, only to see Whit Merrifield hit another triple in the same game. Just absolutely insane. Whit Merrifield was ridiculous for him. On the pitching side, Jake Odorizzi, 6 innings in a win, 8 strikeouts. That start came against the Yankees. Tyler Glasnow, man, I really thought this kid was going to go the distance against Baltimore. He looked so good. 7 innings, 8 strikeouts, nothing earned, a .43 whip, and a win. And finally, Sir Anthony Dominguez, 3 relief appearances. I believe Jason 1 relief appearances. No, he did not. So Sir Anthony Dominguez was looks like Jason's most quality reliever. He did get 2 wins. He got him 2 wins over the week, so that's probably why I gave it to him. Jason really hurt himself with his streamers this week. He had 3 of the worst starts this week out of Tyson Ross, Tyler Beede, and Marco Gonzalez. And if you add in Yu Darvish's kind of shit start, that's really what cost him a lot of categories this week. Especially ERA and whip. But, 6 losses was bad. And only getting to 51 innings was pretty bad, too. Jason falls to 7th. I remain atop the standings. Moving on, we move on to Jimmy Dunlap, number 2 overall in the league, taking on Andy Solar Greco, all brawn, no brains. If I can find the matchup, here it is. Close categories this time by Jimmy won by 1 error. He won by, and this isn't a typo, it's 0.0004 percentage points in batting average. It was they ended up both being 243. Jimmy having a 0.2429, and Andy having a 0.2425. Both obviously round up to 243, but Jimmy's is better, and he also won by 0.02 points in ERA. For Andy, he won by 2 triples, 2 steals, an inning and 2/3, a single loss, and 2 relief appearances. They tied with 3 wins. For Jimmy, his bench was okay. There were a lot of counting stats, but only 11 for 53, which is 208 batting average. He did give up. He did leave 5 runs, 4 doubles, 2 homers, 8 RBIs, 4 walks, and 16 strikeouts. Jimmy, another one that only trailed after Monday. After that, it was a very solid matchup for him. In fact, he led as high as 16-5 on Thursday. So Andy was on the comeback trail. I think another day or two, and it would have been Andy's to win. But obviously, we only play Monday through Sunday. Jimmy did have some interesting pickups this week. He dropped Brad Peacock for Nick Margevicius, burning a waiver claim. He picked up, interestingly enough, Tyler Beatty for Bo Bichette, but then dropped Tyler Beatty immediately for Sky Bolt, which is a waste of a roster move. But more importantly, had he kept Tyler Beatty on his roster, he would have had that terrible start that Jason streamed. Later on in the week, in fact, the next day, Jimmy then drops Brad Peacock, who he burned a waiver claim on, for Brandon Brennan, who he burned a waiver claim on. He also added Andrew Haney. I know from drafting him that he is injury prone as fuck, so good luck with him. And finally, as far as moves are concerned, he picks up Ty Wingenter. He's like the setup guy for Kirby Yates out in San Diego. Solid kid, but the kid went on the DL like almost immediately after he picked him up, so he had to burn another roster move and pick up Sam Dyson. For Andy, 12 for 51 on his bench, a 236 batting average, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 4 homers, 9 RBIs, a stolen base, 2 walks, 20 strikeouts, and an error. You hear all of those stats and you think, wow, 4 homers and 9 RBIs. He must have really made poor decisions. And I find this to be completely false. Like, Andy had the week that we all sort of knew was coming if you were to buy in on Jesus Aguilar. You knew Aguilar was going to have a week like this. You knew Aguilar was going to hit. The question was, when was it going to happen and how quickly could you act on it and how much of it was going to be real? On Monday, Aguilar hit 2 homers and drove in 4 on his bench because he had been ice cold, hitting like 130 something up until that point. So, okay, he does that. Well, Andy left him on his bench the second day, which was Tuesday, the 30th. And he homered again and drove in 3. So now, okay, yes, you must get Aguilar into the lineup. Here it is. The calendar's changing to May, and Aguilar's about to take off. So he gets in the lineup, and he walks 4 times, and that's the last we heard of Jesus Aguilar this week. So, is he back? I don't know. I know I had him on the roster for a minute, and I decided I didn't want any part of that because I knew that this was the type of thing you were going to run into. And with Andy's first base situation being what it is, you know, he picked up Matt Olson very early after he was dropped. You know, he's sort of been churning through first baseman, waiting on Matt Olson. So Aguilar, you know, it's gonna be rough go, but hopefully if he turns it around, it'll look really good for him. Roster moves, nothing stands out. too crazy. Let's just move right to key players. For Jimmy, it was Alex Bregman. Holy shit, this guy. 280 batting average, a 357 on base percentage, 5 homers, 10 RBIs, 6 runs scored, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, and an error. It's also Anthony Rizzo, who hit 3 homers, drove in 9, batted 389 with a 455 on base percentage, 3 runs, a double, a stolen base, and 2 walks. He did not strike out this week. And for Gary Sanchez, 3 homers, 3 RBIs, a 412 batting average, a 500 on base, 4 runs, and a double, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Just an absolutely monster week out of those guys. Surprisingly enough, Jimmy didn't clean sweep the offensive categories. He did win homers. Obviously, he hit 15 in the week. He did win walks, on base percentage. He won enough of the categories to obviously get him an 11-9 win. Pitching wise, I got to give it to Zach Greinke, 2.63 ERA and an 0.88 WHIP over 13 2/3 innings, a win, 11 strikeouts, and only 1 walk. Also, Mike Minor is continuing to do Mike Minor things this year. I mean, the guy has been pretty fucking good for a guy you could have picked up off the waiver wire. 8 innings, 9 strikeouts, nothing earned, a 1.13 WHIP. Jimmy is now the 4th owner of this guy. And actually, you know who drafted him? Andy. Of course he did. Yep. That's how it happens, Finally, for Jimmy, Brad Hand. Brad Hand doing Brad Hand things. 3 relief appearances, no earned, 2 saves. And, he clean sweep saves, 5-0. So Brad Hand basically single-handedly won him that category. Moving on to Andy's team, first and foremost, shout out to Rafi Devers, 367 average, a 412 on base percentage, 10 big runs scored, and considering that he won runs by 11, Rafi Devers is definitely a catalyst for that. 4 doubles, a homer, 7 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, and an error. Rafi Devers has not exactly been what everyone had hoped for, although this week he was just ridiculous. He had multi-hit games in 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, 5 of them. So 5 out of the 7 days this week he had a multi-hit game. Just an absolute beast this week. He does have 4 steals, which I find interesting. But the home run was his first of the year. Adalberto Mondesi, another guy that Andy traded for in that large trade earlier this year. Mondesi drove in the most runs on his team with 8. He also had 2 triples, 3 doubles, 6 runs, 3 steals, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, a 286 batting average, and a 355 on base percentage. Mondesi was a monster. Andy won RBIs, triples, doubles, and runs. So all of that is attributed to Mondesi, as well as steals. I think I said last week, any team with Mondesi on it is probably not going to lose steals very often. So it's good to see him come back with 3 after being shut out last week. Pitching-wise for Andy, Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler, again, 13 innings, 14 strikeouts, a 4.15 ERA, and a 1.31 WHIP. A lot of that can be attributed to the bad start he had at home against Cincinnati, because his start against Milwaukee, though in a losing effort, he didn't get the loss, but in a losing effort, he threw 7 innings and 10 strikeouts. That was a great start for him. Justin Verlander, 12 1/3, a win, a loss. He did give up 4 homers, but 14 strikeouts and a 3.65 ERA. Verlander's giving up a ton of homers this year, and 3 of them came to the Angels on the 5th. But the start against Minnesota on, last Monday, 7 strikeouts over 6 innings. He's given up the long ball. He does pitch in a fairly hitter-friendly park in Houston. The unfortunate part is both of these starts were on the road. So, you'd like to see him get the home run number down. And finally, Edwin Diaz, 3 relief appearances. He did get 2 losses. Tough luck. The losses came against Cincinnati early in the week. The 1 homer to Jesse Winker. I think he gave up another homer to somebody else. But just he. The reason I gave it to Edwin Diaz is because Andy won relief appearances and Diaz led his team in them with 3. So, Jimmy does. Tough week for Jimmy, too, even in the win. He loses Corey Kluber to the arm fracture on that comebacker. He's going to be down for quite a while. And considering he just picked up Andrew Haney and he picked up Cody Allen, he's got a lot of injured guys on the team. Lucky for him, Luis Castillo's having a great year. Mike Minor is doing well for him. So he can afford to sit on Corey Kluber for a minute, who, in his defense, was pitching to a 5.80 ERA anyway, so he wasn't Corey Kluber of old. It looked like a blowout win earlier in the week. Like I said, 16-5 on Friday. Andy made a great comeback. But the big thing about this is that Jimmy is still undefeated in 2019 in the bigs. He's still in second place. He has not lost. So somebody needs to take this guy down. Moving on. We move on to the third place team coming into the week. It is Mike Haber, Teoscar named Desire, going up against his brother Josh Haber. Well, I'll be damned. And Mike gets the win 13-9 here. Close categories this week. Mike won by 2 doubles and a steal. Josh won by 2 triples, a loss, a complete game, a save, a walk, and they did not tie in anything. For Mike on his bench, that's quite a bit there. 16 for 42. That's a 381 batting average, 7 runs, 6 doubles, a homer, 7 RBIs, a steal, and 10 strikeouts. Big thing was on the 3rd, which is last Friday. Jorge Soler had a 2-run home run on the bench. Jose Martinez went 0 for 3 in right field. He was up 12-9. He never trailed in this matchup. So, you can't fault him too much. He actually continued to extend the lead basically every day. The biggest it got was to 13-7. And from there, it was 12-9 and 13-9 the rest of the way. So, Mike pretty much dominated this matchup and extended it as far as he could. No big adds or drops for him this week that I can point to. So we move to Josh. It's another head-scratching week from Josh. On his bench, he went 21 for 67, which is a 313 batting average. 4 doubles, 2 homers, 11 RBIs, 5 walks, 17 strikeouts, and 4 errors. The big thing was the doubles, considering that he lost doubles by 2, and 11 RBIs, considering he lost RBIs by 6. The big thing about it was just, again, how he's playing Brandon Lowe just makes my head scratch. On Wednesday, which was the first, Brandon Lowe was in a doubleheader, went 3 for 8, and Eric Hosmer was in the utility spot and went 0 for 4. The next day, Brandon Lowe goes 2 for 4 with a 2-run homer, and Yan Gomes goes 1 for 3 on the bench. I didn't really see a way to get Lowe in on that day, but Yan Gomes on the bench means that once again he played Kurt Suzuki, who plays on the same team as Yan Gomes at the same position. That is incredibly frustrating to look at. On the 3rd, which was Friday, Josh Donaldson goes 3 for 5 with a double and 3 RBIs on the bench. And he started Niko Goodrum at third base. Look, Niko Goodrum is incredibly versatile and, valuable in that sense. But he went 0 for 4. I just don't see why you're benching Josh Donaldson, Brandon Lowe went 2 for 4 with 2 runs and a double on the bench, and Albies went 1 for 5. That one I'm not going to argue, right? Like, if you like Albies in the matchup, then you like Albies in the matchup, and Lowe you have to get in where he fits in. What's nice is that he has left field and right field eligibility, so you can squeeze him in there if you need to. Only one move this week for Josh. He added Cal Quantrill, son of Paul. So we moved to key players. For Mike, I tell you what, all of a sudden, Boston finds themselves with a new second baseman of the future, and that's Michael Chavis. Michael Chavis hit 407 this week with a 500 on base percentage, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a double, steal, 5 walks, 9 strikeouts. That kid went off. And for somebody who was picked up initially by Frank Bucco and then dropped the next day, Mike sort of falls into a great new second baseman here to split time with Cesar Hernandez. As well, James McCann, another free agent pickup. James McCann is all of a sudden just fucking raking. I mean, the guy hit 438 for the week, 471 on base, a homer, 3 RBIs, 4 doubles, and 3 runs scored. I mean, that guy is tearing the cover off the ball. And finally, Eugenio Suarez, he only hit 167, right? But he hit 3 homers, drove in 7, scored 3 runs. For a matchup as close as it was, he won homers, he won RBIs. Let's give it to Suarez, who hit the most homers on the team, tied with Chavis and Encarnacion, and drove in the second most runs. Pitching wise for Mike Soroka, 13 innings, 2 wins, a .69 ERA, a .77 WHIP, with 14 strikeouts. Another guy he picked up off the waiver wire. Another guy who was on Frank Bucco's team and was dropped after 2 days. I feel a rant coming on. Moving on, Will Smith. Will Smith had 4 relief appearances, which Mike won by 3. So 4 relief appearances, 4 innings, a win, 3 saves, a .225 ERA, a .75 WHIP, and 5 strikeouts. And finally, Jack Flaherty. 5 2/3. Though he did take the loss, he got 9 strikeouts, which is why I'm giving this to him, because he won Ks. Moving on to Josh. Ozzie Albies had himself a good week. A .242 batting average, 2 homers, 8 RBIs, 4 runs, a double, and a triple. The reason I give it to him is because he won triples. Eric Hosmer had a good week, a .429 batting average, a .409 on base percentage, homer, 3 RBIs, a double, 3 runs, and a strikeout. And finally, Kurt Suzuki hit 500 for the week, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, a .538 on base percentage. What's frustrating is, you have yourself here a platoon that is on the same team. Play it like that. This was a really pitcher versus hitter matchup. Mike took the vast majority of the hitting categories, whereas Josh took a ton of the pitching categories. Josh left a lot on his bench, though, that could have swung some of the offensive categories the other way. The 4 doubles and the 11 RBIs that I mentioned earlier were especially evident. You swing those 2, and you're talking an 11-11 tie. Moving on. We move on to Stanton Room only, a battle of the Jameses this week, as we get James McCloskey versus James Santangelo. James McCloskey takes this one down 15-6. Close categories, James wins by a triple, 2 homer. I'm sorry, I should phrase this better. McCloskey wins by a triple, 2 homers, an RBI, 2 steals, a loss, a save, 3 strikeouts, and a .03 WHIP. Santangelo wins by a win, 2 home runs given up by a pitcher, and a relief appearance. For James McCloskey, he went 6 for 23 on his bench. It's a .261 batting average. He had 5 runs, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts, and an error. He did trail early on 8-10, but after Tuesday, it was all McCloskey. The one thing I found interesting, the one thing I can point to, Hunter Renfroe did hit a pinch hit grand slam on his bench. You can't ever blame someone for not playing somebody because he thinks you think they're going to hit a pinch hit grand slam. But the other interesting thing was Hyun-Jin Ryu. He had an eight inning masterpiece that early on was the start of the week. 8 innings, 1 earned, 6 strikeouts, and a no decision. That start came against the Giants in Oracle Park. Otherwise, it was a really good week for McCloskey. I see the one questionable drop I'll call him on. He picked up Josh Phegley, and Josh Phegley led his team in RBIs last week with 9, and he dropped him. And maybe he wasn't playing, and you needed a catcher that day. But a guy who drives in 8 RBIs in a day, I don't think you drop that guy. He's obviously really hot. Otherwise, nothing I can point to as, incredibly unnecessary as far as drops are concerned. We moved to Santangelo, who went 5 for 45 on his bench. That's a 111 batting average. That's incredibly good. However, in those 5 hits, 7 runs, 2 homers, 8 RBIs, 8 walks, and 18 strikeouts. The big day was Tucker Barnhart homered on the bench on Saturday. He had Dahl at utility, and Zobrist did not play in right field. And Yasmani Grandal went 0 for 7 at catcher. So he had 2 ways of getting this guy into the lineup for that homer, and he just couldn't make it happen. Only 3 moves for Santangelo this week. Nothing I would point to is terrible. Key players this week. Again, as I mentioned, Josh Phegley. What a week for this guy. 357 average, a homer, 9 RBIs, 2 doubles, 3 runs scored, and apparently that's not good enough for Mr. McCloskey because he dropped him. Joey Gallo, again, continues his torrid start. 333 batting average, a 545 on base percentage because he had 7 walks this week. 2 homers, 3 RBIs, a steal, and 6 runs scored. And finally, Gene Segura, 318 batting average, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 doubles, and 6 runs scored. Pitching-wise, it was 2 Japanese Dodgers, Kenta Maeda and Hyun-Jin Ryu. Maeda, 11 innings, 9 strikeouts, a 3.27, a 1.36 whip. And as I said, 9 strikeouts. And Ryu, again, had that masterful 8 innings, 6 strikeout start early in the week. And finally, I'm going to give the nod to Ty Buttrey here, who got the only save of this entire matchup. 3 appearances, 4 innings, 3 strikeouts, nothing earned, and a .75 whip with that 1 save. So that alone gave James McCloskey a win. For Santangelo, offensively, offensively it was difficult to find because he kind of struggled there. He only hit 203 for the week. He hit 291 on base, so finding guys that actually did well is a bit difficult. I gave it to Marcus Semien, who hit 200, had a 333 on base percentage. His 5 walks were really important. He had 2 RBIs and a steal and 8 strikeouts. It's literally the only counting stats. David Dahl had an okay week, a 208 batting average, but he drove in 6 runs, and that led the team and he had a homer, a double, and 4 runs scored. James didn't win any of those categories, but, I can't just look at guys who won walks because, there's more to the offense. Finally, Mike Moustakas, I think it was the case. Yeah, Mike Moustakas had the second highest batting average of the week. And he also hit a homer and drove in 5 RBIs. He had 3 doubles and 3 runs scored. It was just a really, really bad week for Santangelo. He only hit 203. Nobody on his team who had more than 7 at-bats hit over 263. It's a pretty small sample size to hit only 263. Yelich being out all week really hurt. But at the same time, McCloskey lost Bellinger. So, the 2 best hitters to start this season went head-to-head this week, and we got kind of a meager output as far as offense is concerned. Pretty disappointing. Neither of them pitched well, but McCloskey gets a solid win thanks to a few good streams along the way. We move on, and trigger warning for those who don't like my rants, because my rant of this week has to do with roster moves, and it has to do with using them wisely. In 2014, there were no roster limit on a limit on roster moves, and I won the championship that year, and I believe I had somewhere in the neighborhood of like 250 or 260 roster moves. And it was after that season that Ben implemented the roster moves, and initially I thought this is not good, but he started it at 21. Which was 3 a day, which was more than enough to pacify me. And he's moved it back ever since to our 13 this year. When you have that few roster moves, you need to use them wisely. You need to make sure that the guy you're picking up, A, you have a reason to be picking him up. And B, if you're picking him up because you don't have somebody starting at, say, third base that day, then he better be fucking starting that day, or now you've wasted a move. This brings me to the matchup between Frank Bucco and Chris Levy. Lesser of two evils versus Jose Told a Story. Both these guys changed their team names this week. Prefacing this rant, let's highlight Frank's team. No, let's highlight Chris's team first. He's the one who won. Chris wins 11-10. Close categories. 2 homers for Chris, a loss and a relief appearance. For Frank, he won by a triple, 2 RBIs, 2 steals, a home run given up by a pitcher, and .002 in whip. Another case of, holy shit, their whip percentages are so close that it had to come down to a tiebreaker of the next decimal point. For Chris, he went 13 for 54 on the bench, 241 batting average, 6 runs, 4 doubles, 7 RBIs, 2 steals, 5 walks, and 12 strikeouts. The one big benching he did this week is he left Ross Stripling on Monday on the bench. Stripling went a third of an inning and gave up a whole shit ton of runs to the tune of an 81 ERA. And Michael Wacha was on the DL, and that was a decent start, but it didn't hurt anything. Otherwise, he had a solid week. He picked up Colton Wong for a minute. He dropped Colton Wong back on the waiver wire. The big start that was bad was Freddie Peralta. Now, Freddie Peralta came in for Chris. Went 4 innings. 4 innings, gave up 2 homers. The start was at home against Colorado. Now, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but if I'm sitting there about to stream a pitcher, I know Milwaukee doesn't pitch well. I know Milwaukee's ballpark plays small. And I know Colorado has a really strong offense. That does not paint a picture of Freddie Peralta going out there and starting and having a great start. In fact, he went 4 innings, gave up 9 runs, 6 of which were earned, gave up 2 homers, 3 strikeouts. It was not a good start. It very well could have lost him the week. It put Frank ahead for a period of time because the start was on the 2nd. Frank went ahead 9-8 on Tuesday, and then went ahead again on Saturday 11-9. This was an incredibly close matchup, and when it's this close, you look at certain things to figure out where they went wrong. For Frank, I'm about to tell you. Frank went 18 for 61 on his bench, which is a .295 batting average. 11 runs. He lost runs by 9. 4 doubles. Doesn't matter. 2 homers. He lost by 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 8 walks, 13 strikeouts, and 2 errors. Now, some of those stats would have flipped categories in the other direction. So I can't sit here and say, this is the reason you lost. Because it's not. This is why. We come to his moves for the week. And I don't know if anybody else noticed this, but on Monday the 29th, Frank made 8 of his 13 roster moves on Monday. And the biggest problem I have with this isn't that he made 8 roster moves. Because if he made 8 roster moves and kept all these guys and played them throughout the week, and they did well, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But what happened on Monday is like a snowball's effect into just wasted moves for the sake of making moves. Last Sunday, Frank dropped 3 guys off of his roster in preparation for this. So he added Griffin Canning, Felix Hernandez, and Hunter Pence. Immediately were his first 3 moves. Griffin Canning pitched for him. Felix Hernandez pitched for him. Hunter Pence, I think, got into the lineup once that week. He had 2 walks, a run, and a strikeout on Frank's team. That's not good. He then dropped Ben Zobrist to pick up David Bote. He also dropped, but then he turned around minutes later and dropped David Bote for Hanser Alberto. Okay, so you've now wasted that roster move. That's number 5. He drops Kevin Gausman, who he traded for with Ben, for Harrison Bader. Okay, you need an outfielder. Fine. He drops Colton Wong for David Bote. So you've double wasted a move. Because when you had David Bote on your roster, from the Ben Zobrist move, you could have just dropped Colton Wong for Hanser Alberto. But instead, you dropped David Bote back to the waiver wire, then picked him up again, all within hours of each other. So it's a double wasted move. That's 2 wastes out of 13. And then, in his final move on Monday, he drops Tyler Flowers to pick up Christian Vasquez, but he does it at 4:11 in the afternoon. The problem with that is the game started at 4:10, and he can't get Christian Vasquez into the lineup, and that's a wasted move. So that's 3 of his 13 moves on Monday wasted. We move to Tuesday. He drops Junior Guerra. Fine. He drops Dansby Swanson, who he picked up off the waiver wire. And I think he gave up on him too soon. But he did pick up Tim Beckham, who I think Ben gave up on too soon. So, take that for what it is. And that's a waiver claim. Okay. He drops Dwight Smith, which I can understand. He's got a very crowded outfield at this point. He picks up Chase Anderson. That's now 11 moves. On Wednesday, he drops Griffin Canning and Felix Hernandez, the 2 first guys that he picked up, who were on 2-start weeks. Griffin Canning started 2 games, or was supposed to start 2 games this week. His start got pushed back. Felix Hernandez also should have started 2 games this week, but didn't. He's pitching today. Those 2 guys, for me, if you're picking them up Monday, you're starting them their next 2 starts because you're thinking that they're going to get 2 starts this week. But I digress. He drops those 2 guys, picks up David Fletcher and Trevor Gott. Trevor Gott got him a grand total of 1 relief appearance. And David Fletcher got him a grand total of what looks like one game, but he did get a steal out of it. Now, and Frank won steals, so I'll give him credit for that one. Absolutely give him credit for that move. However, that's 12 moves by Wednesday. And rather than waiting until the end of the week to see what category he may need to chase in order to win this week, he drops Chase Anderson after his start and picks up Martin Perez. Now, in a vacuum, that's a decent idea because you're picking up another pitcher. You might need to chase innings. You might need to chase wins. You might need to chase strikeouts. There's just one problem with that move. Martin Perez is pitching today, which is in week 6. And he made that move on Wednesday of last week, and it was his last move of the week. I'm sorry, he made that move Thursday morning. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and all of Thursday. That's 4 days where he can't make a roster move. And it hurt him. It absolutely hurt him. Because if you watch the matchup, it's very back and forth. And to see as many close categories, especially relief appearances. Relief appearances is a very easy stat to chase. But you can't do it if you don't have the roster moves. And burning through 8 of them on Monday and wasting 3 of those 8 on Monday. Those 3 moves are absolutely the reason Frank lost this week. We move on to key players for this week, and my apologies to Chris for turning this into a Frank rant, because you won and you deserved this win. Michael Brantley, 455 average, a 478 on base percentage, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 3 doubles, and 5 runs scored. Eduardo Escobar, and that, ironically, I'm just going to show this. Frank is calling me right now. It's as if he knows that I just finished a rant about him. Eduardo Escobar had a good week for Chris. 2 homers, 4 RBIs, a 381 batting average, 2 doubles, 4 runs scored. And finally, Jesse Winker. Jesse Winker had a good week. He torched my fucking Mets, but he had a good week. 259 batting average, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 3 doubles, 6 runs scored, a 355 on base from 4 walks and 6 strikeouts. Pitching-wise for Chris, Rick Porcello comes back and all of a sudden has himself a fucking Cy Young caliber start. 14 innings, 15 strikeouts. 8 innings, 8 strikeouts, no earned against Oakland, and then 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, 2 earned against the White Sox. Is Rick Porcello back? I don't know. Probably not, but he could be. And it's nice to have that kind of a start from him. Zach Eflin had a great start again, following his complete game 1-run performance against Miami. He goes up against Washington. 7 innings, a win, 5 strikeouts, just 1 home run. And finally, Josh Hader, 3 relief appearances, 3 saves, 10 strikeouts. 10 strikeouts in 3 2/3 innings. Last I checked, 3 2/3 innings is 11 outs. He got 10 of them by strikeout. And he was second on Josh's team. I'm sorry, on Chris's team in strikeouts. That guy is a fucking beast. For Frank, offensively, he didn't have a bad week. He did win the vast majority of offensive categories. Carlos Correa had a great week. He batted .350, .391 on base, a homer, 5 RBIs, 2 doubles, 3 runs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Brian McCann gave him a good week, a homer, 6 RBIs, 3 runs, a double, a .385 batting average, a .471 on base. And Hunter Dozier, continues to have a good season for Frank. .320 average, .452 on base percentage, a homer, an RBI, and a steal, 6 walks, 3 doubles, 4 runs scored. Pitching for Frank, again, he didn't have a bad week. He did not have a bad week. He just mismanaged this. John Lester had a great start. 7 innings, a win, 8 strikeouts, nothing earned. a single walk, and it was in Seattle. Seattle has been hot this year. They're starting to cool off quite a bit, but I digress. Caleb Smith, who very well may be Frank's biggest pickup this year. Caleb Smith, 7 innings, a win, 8 strikeouts, 1 earned run. The start comes against Cleveland. And finally, Hector Neris, another guy he picked up off the waiver wire. He gives him a save, 3 relief appearances, 2 and a third innings, and no earned runs. Frank blew the opportunity to win this week with his 8 moves. He left enough runs, home runs, and walks on his bench to win those categories. And 1 move late in the week could have added another reliever to chase relief appearances. That's not to say that Chris did poorly. And that's not to say that Chris doesn't deserve this win. He does. But Frank's team is solid. And I think he needs to be more cognizant of the roster moves going forward. End of rant. We move on. We move on to another blowout win. And this one has me rather concerned for a year in and year out competitor in the playoffs in this league. Angels in the Trout field. Bobby Russo absolutely annihilated bumping Uglas Ari Nisman. Close categories this week. Bobby wins by an error, 2 saves, and 2 relief appearances. Ari wins by 2 doubles and 2 triples, and they tied in losses. For Bobby, he went 13 for 67 on his bench. It's a 194 batting average. 10 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 6 walks, 12 strikeouts, and 2 errors. Bobby only trailed once in this week. It was after Wednesday. He trailed 7-9. He left Yanni Chirinos on his bench early in the week. I marked it because he went 5 2/3, got the win, 4 strikeouts. It didn't end up mattering because Bobby had an absolutely amazing pitching week, and we'll get to it in a minute. He also left Adam Jones on his bench, who went 3 for 5 with a homer and a double, and Nick Markakis went 0 for 2 in right field. Ultimately, that one doesn't matter either because he didn't win doubles. But I digress. Moves for Bobby this week, very, very minimal. He only made 4 of them. Nothing of note. For Ari, he goes 8 for 42 on his bench, was a 190 batting average, 5 runs, a homer, 5 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts, and an error. Nothing there sticks out as the vast majority of those statistics would not have changed any of the outcomes. Moves-wise, he finally released Hunter Strickland, but the one big thing was he released Hunter Strickland for Manny Banuelos. Manny Banuelos had a great start for me last week and had an absolutely abysmal start for Ari this week. I've noticed coming into this week, Ari has absolutely had the worst pitching staff in the league. His ERA is well over 4, if not over 5. And for a period of time, it was over 6. Coming into whenever Banuelos pitched, it was a really close matchup. I reached out to Bobby after Noah Syndergaard's complete game, and he says, I have to be really cognizant of my pitching now because Ari's having a good week. And the next day, Manny Banuelos absolutely shits the bed, and that gives Bobby all the opening he needs to take everything in the pitching categories except walks. Again, Ari is in some serious trouble now. He is 33 games under 500. And I get it's a long season, but you can't dig yourself this kind of hole this early. Ari's got to do something. Key players. For Bobby, great pickup in Jonathan Lucroy this week. 364 batting average, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, and 4 runs scored. He hit 2 homers on Sunday. He hit 2 homers on Sunday against Houston. I guess that was against Verlander. Ketel Marte, again, off to a ridiculous start this year. 368 batting average, 455 on base, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, 9 runs scored, which helped propel Bobby to the win in runs. And finally, Josh Bell. Josh Bell went 318 batting average, 400 on base, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 3 doubles, and 4 runs scored. Pitching-wise, man, what a week for Bobby. First of all, he finishes with a 1.89 ERA and a .90 WHIP. It's one of the best pitching weeks in Big's history. Anytime anybody can get under a 2 ERA with over 50 innings pitched, it's a fantastic week. So it is obviously Noah Syndergaard, a complete game shutout, 10 strikeouts, a walk, a .56 WHIP, just absolutely dominated Cincinnati. And for what it's worth, he hit a home run and scored the only run in the game. Max Fried had a great start, 7 innings, 7 strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA. That start came again at home against San Diego. And Garrett Cole, who, by the way, leads the league in strikeouts, in case you didn't know. He's got 65 strikeouts this year already. He threw a 7-inning masterpiece, 11 strikeouts in Minnesota. Did give up 3 walks, but that's the walk total that Bobby had is much more pointing the finger at Anibal Sanchez, who had a start on the 5th, which I'm assuming it was Bobby chasing innings at that point. He gave up 6 walks total for the week, which is 4 on the 5th and 2 on the 30th. For Ari, he's going to go as the Colorado Rockies go. Charlie Blackmon had a great week, 308 average, 6 runs, 4 doubles, a triple, a homer, 5 RBIs, a walk, and 2 strikeouts with a 357 on-base percentage. Nolan Arenado, 400 average, 419 on-base percentage, 7 runs, 3 doubles, 3 homers, 7 RBIs. He's hitting a home run like every day, it seems like. And Ahmed Rosario. Ahmed Rosario had 10 strikeouts this week, but he did hit 321 with a 345 on base percentage. Got him 2 steals, which is one of the categories that Ari did win was steals. He won at 5-0. So, give Ahmed Rosario that much. He also hit a triple and a double this week. Ari did win both of those categories as well. So, pitching-wise for Ari, again, it's not pretty. It is not pretty at all. Anthony DeSclafani probably gave him the best start of his week. 5 2/3, 8 strikeouts, no earned against the Mets. It was a really good stream. I think he's still on Ari's roster. So it was a stream that Ari kept. Jeff Samardzija, 10 innings, 5 strikeouts, a 3.60 ERA. Did not get a decision. Had a better start against the Dodgers than he did against Cincinnati. And finally, I had to find somebody to give this to, so I gave it to Hector Rondon. 2 relief appearances, 2 innings, nothing earned. Again, Ari pitched to a 6.75 ERA with a 1.33 WHIP. That's not going to win you very many weeks, if at all. Only 1 save. He gave up 12 homers. He only won 1 game. He streamed Manny Banuelos, and that ruined him. Banuelos pitched to a 30.38 ERA in that game and destroyed any chance of Ari having a good pitching week again. 4 out of 5 weeks. So Ari's pretty much run the gauntlet already. He's lost 4 of his first 5, with his only non-loss being a tie to Ben. And now he runs a gauntlet where he faces me, Jason, Mike Sherman, and Uncle Barry in 4 of the next 5 weeks. Ari could really bury himself this week if he doesn't turn this thing around quickly. I believe he can, but he's got to do something, and he's got to do something soon. Moving on. We move on to Mike Sherman against Ben Nisman. This is one of the more interesting matchups this week. Ben crushes it 15-3. But if I had shown you this matchup before Sunday, you would never have believed that this was going to be a 15-3 win. Close categories. Ben wins by 2 doubles, an RBI, a save, a walk. That would be a walk given up by a pitcher, and a relief appearance. Mike did not win a close category. Everything was fairly, well, I mean, he only won 3 of them, and they were all fairly one-sided. They tied in triples, home runs, and walked offensively. For Benjamin, he went 2 for 13 on his bench. It's a 154 average, 2 runs, a double, a walk, and 6 strikeouts. None of that would have affected any of the outcome. However, one thing I do want to point out, Buster Posey, up until Saturday, had a 10 or 11 game hitting streak going. You know, Buster Posey's up to 257 average, and he's hitting. He's hitting almost every single day. You know who dropped him? Frank did. Let's see. It was interesting to see Ben drop. He did that last week. Okay, never mind. Nothing really exciting on Ben's team as far as adds or drops. I know he struggled with Starlin Castro drop on the 2nd, so he picked him back up on the 4th. I know he's plugging him in at second base as much as possible. Just a solid week for Benji. For Mike, he went 2 for 8 on the bench. That's a 250 batting average with 2 runs and 2 walks. That's it. He led after Monday, 10-7, and that was the last time he led in this matchup. He trailed the rest of the way, but it was fairly close the rest of the way. 8-11, 7-10, and Ben just opened it up on Sunday. The thing about Sunday, and let me get to Sunday for Ben's team so I can fully explain exactly how he did this. So he won by 1 relief appearance. He had 4 of his closers go. He won by 1 walk given up. Not a single one of those 4 guys who went gave up a walk. He won by 2 wins. None of those guys won. However, 2 of them blew a save. 2 of them gave up home runs. And he still won homers given up. And he did not win losses. But he was already losing it 6-5 coming into that day. Raisel Iglesias and Kenley Jansen both blew saves. Both gave up home runs. One was a 2-run homer. One was a 3-run homer. Aroldis Chapman got him the save. And guess what? He won saves by 1. Offensively, he tied home runs. Well, he hit 2 homers. And one of them was from Buster Posey. He won RBIs by 1. He got 6 RBIs that day. 3 of them from Buster Posey. 18 walks, they tied. He got 2 walks that day. Not from Buster Posey. It was absolute doubles. Doubles. He hit 3 doubles. He won doubles by 2. Ben had like the most perfect storm Sunday between what he did and what Mike didn't do, because Mike had an abysmal Sunday. His team hit .094 with 11 strikeouts. It's a 121 on base percentage. Mike had a terrible week Sunday. He gave up 4 home runs. He gave up 6 walks. He only had 3 relief appearances. It was just an absolutely perfect storm for Ben to take every category that was up for grabs. And, to his credit, he jumps all the way to 8th place for it. Moving on. And I believe this is the final matchup of this week, as I'm already over an hour. We've got Barry Nisman, Kikuchi Kuchi Ku, against the Beavers, Nick Homan. Barry takes this down 11-8. We've got close categories. Barry wins by a run, a homer, 2 steals, a strikeout, a loss, 2 saves, and a relief appearance. Nick wins by an RBI, 2 home runs given up by a pitcher. They tied in triples and wins. Uncle Barry, 14 for 50 on the bench with a 280 batting average, 9 runs, 3 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 7 RBIs, 6 walks, and 6 strikeouts. Uncle Barry left a lot on his bench. The big one are the triples because they tied there, and the home run because he only won, or the RBIs. I'm sorry, the RBIs because he lost by 1. Yuli Gurriel went on Saturday, went 2 for 4 with a home run and a triple on the bench, and Starling Marte went 0 for 5 in the utility spot. Rough. If you like Starling Marte's matchup better, great. I know Yuli Gurriel wasn't hitting very much, but man, that sucks to see. On Sunday, Omar Narvaez goes 3 for 3 with a run and a double on the bench. Yadier Molina did perform, but not to that extent. Raimel Tapia with a triple and 3 RBIs on the bench. That alone, that 3-run scoring triple would have flipped 2 categories. It would have given him triples, and it would have flipped RBIs. Gregory Polanco went 0 for 5 in right field. He would have been able to move Lurie Garcia, who was in the utility spot, to right field, and Tapia could have played in the utility spot. Rough. And especially considering Tapia's been hot. You know, he's been really hot lately, and he was playing at home. You know, I'd love to get Colorado guys in my lineup, especially at home. Uncle Barry put in a waiver claim for Zach Davies and dropped Jeremy Hellickson. That's about all I saw that was... and he dropped Julio Teheran for Gregory Polanco. I found that one kind of curious. But I guess he likes Polanco more than he does the rest of the right fielders he was playing. I just hope the guy can stay healthy for him. You know, he's been kind of shit since he came back off the DL. So we'll see. For Nick, 5 for 22 on his bench, 227 batting average, 2 runs, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, a stolen base, a walk, and 8 strikeouts. Again, Saturday and Sunday were the key here. Puig went 3 for 4 with a homer on the bench, and Ryan McMahon went 0 for 3 in the utility spot. And on Saturday, Franmil Reyes homered on his bench. I don't see how Nick gets Franmil Reyes into his lineup very often, although he did hit 2 home runs and 3 RBIs this week for him. I guess, you know, he's got a plethora of outfielders. I tried to send him Tyler Skaggs for Franmil Reyes, and he declined it and sent it back to me wanting Joe Musgrove. Not going to happen. Not a whole lot of moves from Nick. We'll move to key players. Key players for Barry, Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts hit 231 with a 333 on base, but he hit 2 homers and drove in 8 runs. And, you know, with Barry winning homers, I wanted to find the guy who hit the most, and that's Bogaerts with 2. Starling Marte also hit 2 home runs, 231 batting average, 259 on base, 2 steals, which he did win, 5 runs, a double, 6 RBIs. And finally, former Best Buy manager. I mean, look at that guy's picture. Look at that guy's profile picture. He looks like he could be the manager of Best Buy. Eric Sogard, 333 batting average, 500 on base percentage, a triple, a homer, 3 RBIs, 4 walks. Did not strike out. With him tying in triples, you know, Sogard is pretty much the reason for that. For Nick, George Springer finally has a good week for him that I'm covering. A 333 batting average, 400 on base, 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 6 runs, a double, and a steal. Rhys Hoskins, again, continues to do Rhys Hoskins things. 375 average, 500 on base, 2 homers, 8 RBIs, 2 doubles, 3 runs, 4 walks, and 6 strikeouts. And finally, Chris Bryant, 333 average, 524 on base, a homer, 6 RBIs, 6 walks, 2 doubles, 5 runs scored. Pitching-wise for each of these guys, for Barry, Yusei Kikuchi finally gives his namesake a solid performance. 7 innings, 10 strikeouts again in Cleveland. He does not get the win, but it's a fantastic start for him. Felipe Vasquez gets him 3 saves over 4 appearances. I believe only 1 earned run on a homer. And finally, Zach Davies, who he streamed, gave him a good start, 7 2/3, a win against the Mets. Of course he did. For Nick, pitching-wise, Jordan Lyles. Jordan Lyles has been a great find for him off of the waiver wire. He's pitched to a 2.20 ERA. He had a great start against Oakland. Overall, he had 10 2/3, 8 strikeouts, and 7 walks, unfortunately. That hurts because he lost walks by 10. And Jacob deGrom, 7 innings, shutout ball, 6 strikeouts, in a no decision against Cincinnati. I believe that was like the super long game that went forever. And finally, Shane Bieber, the namesake of this team, pitches well as well. 7 2/3, 8 strikeouts, a homer. This one was against Seattle. It was a close matchup. Barry takes down despite a plethora of counting stats on his bench. Yeah. We'll get to best and worst really quick. I want to fly through this because I'm over an hour and 10 minutes now. This is going to be the longest one yet. So the best starts of the week. Bobby had Noah Syndergaard's complete game shutout, 10 strikeouts, and a walk. Josh Haber has Kyle Hendricks, a complete game shutout on 81 pitches. Just gross. You know, were they swinging at every first pitch? He only had 3 strikeouts. Best weekly performance. This one's going to go to Alex Bregman, who had 5 homers and 10 RBIs, 6 runs, and a 280 average with a 357 on base. I'm lumping together from here on out worst starts. That includes anybody who was rostered at the time and streams. I've got 5 of them this week. Jason had 3 of them against me. Marco Gonzalez, an inning and 2/3, 6 earned runs, a homer, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, a 16.20 ERA, and a 4.80 WHIP. Tyler Beatty, 2 1/3, 8 runs, 7 earned, 2 homers, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And Tyson Ross, an inning and a third, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, a strikeout, and a homer. Chris streamed Freddie Peralta, as I mentioned earlier, 4 innings, 9 runs, 6 earned, 2 homers, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And Ari's Manny Banuelos start 2 2/3, 9 earned, 3 strikeouts, and 3 homers. The worst weekly performance of a top 2-round player. We're going to give it to Paul Goldschmidt this week, despite Uncle Barry's win. A 172 batting average and on-base percentage, 2 runs and 10 strikeouts. That's literally the entire counting stats for this week. Blake Snell for Santangelo, 3 innings, a homer, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, a 21 ERA, and a 3 WHIP. Maybe he came back from that broken toe too quickly. Best stream of the week, I'm going to give to Ari as well. Anthony DeSclafani, 5 2/3, a walk, 8 strikeouts, no earned, and a .71 WHIP. Trivia question for you fellas. I would like to know in the comments below who leads the league in the following categories, other than Christian Yelich and Cody Bellinger. So take those 2 guys out. Who leads the league in runs? Who leads the league in homers? Who leads the league in triples? And who leads the league in strikeouts by a batter? Pitching-wise, I want to know who leads the league in wins, who leads the league in saves, and who leads the league in relief appearances. Okay? I hope you guys have a great week. I am facing Ari this week. If you guys aren't careful, I am going to open up a fucking massive lead here. So, best of luck to everybody. It's going to be me. Have a good one.